Hello, welcome to the United Community Channel. My name is Jack. This is your latest Manchester United news as we descend into more drama at Manchester United, more hardship, more heartache, as Lisandro Martinez is expected to be out for 2 to 3 months with an aggravation of the injury that he previously had last season. Really, really not good news in relation to, I suppose, Manchester United and the squad in general, and of course, Lisandro Martinez. And we've also heard that Regulion is going to be out until at least after the next international break in a couple of weeks' time. So Manchester United are absolutely paper thin at the back. We're going to get into it. We're going to discuss it. As always, please smash a like on the video. Please hit subscribe. And please do get your comments into the chat below, as always. But look, we're going to start, guys, with, of course, Lisandro Martinez out for 2 to 3 months with aggravation of the previous foot injury. Now, look, obviously, we know what happened to him last season. He, sustained that injury to his foot. What game it was in? Was it in the FA Cup final? Or not? Maybe he didn't play in the FA Cup final. Whatever game it was. No, sorry. I think it was in the Europa League, wasn't it? Europa League game. But, yeah, I mean, has he rushed back? Has he maybe been too eager to get back himself? It's hard to know, but obviously we've seen him. He came off, was it against Arsenal? He came off with, again, it looked like it was being aggravated again, and obviously he's after missing the last couple of games because of it. Initially, Manchester United put out the report that it was down to, a slight aggravation of it, and we needed to rest. He didn't want to, get too serious and so on and so forth. And again, look, we do know that Erik ten Hag keeps these cards very close to his chest when it comes to injured players. But I suppose he couldn't keep it in any longer that Lisandro Martinez is going to be out for an extended period of time. Now, look, what does that mean for Manchester United? I mean, it's certainly not good news. It really isn't. Obviously, we've had our worries in terms of injuries in midfield kind of pre-season, first couple of games of the season, and we're starting to see a lot of players come back from that that area. We've had Kobe Mainoo was close to coming back. Mason Mount is fully back. Obviously, Amrabat signed injured. He's now, you would hope, back to full fitness. And obviously, we've had an accumulation of injuries when it comes to our defense. It started obviously with Martinez, back last season. We've seen Varane get injured very early this season. We've seen Malacia get injured in pre-season. Then we've seen Luke Shaw get injured at the start of the season. Wan-Bissaka get injured as well. So our back line, our defense is absolutely obliterated. You would have to say it's absolutely obliterated. And this Lisandro Martinez news doesn't help. Now, we've also heard reports that Regulion may not return before the October international break due to the injury. Now, again, obviously, Erik ten Hag doesn't give too much away when it comes to injuries. And like we said, he keeps his cards close to his chest. I think the fact that, Regulion did come off in the game against Burnley, wasn't it? I think. Holding his hamstring, and obviously Amrabat comes in then, and he I suppose he fills in at left back. You would expect now that it is going to be Amrabat to fill in, and like I said, these do have knock-on effects, so now that Regulion is injured, it's going to be Amrabat filling in at left back. It just is. I would say Alvaro Fernandez is absolutely kicking himself that he's out on loan. Now, I don't know, have Manchester United got a recall option on that loan deal. But, I mean, we get a couple of injuries to our left backs, Lisandro Martinez and then Luke Shaw. Then before the transfer window, we bring in a loanee to cover the injured left backs. That loanee then that's brought in to cover our injured left backs gets injured himself. It's just, you couldn't write it. And it's, Manchester United at its finest. But, I mean, when we look at Martinez and we look at Regulion, we say right, they're going to be out for a few months. But I think if we look at the injuries, as a collective, someone has to take some form of criticism here, because no other club in the Premier League is having these injury issues. Now, Liverpool have had a few injury issues in midfield and stuff like that, but it's nowhere near the same extent as Manchester United have. And what's the reason for this? What's causing these injuries? This is the question that needs to be asked. It needs to be put to Erik ten Hag. It needs to be put to Manchester United medical department. And, obviously I've got some, reasons that I think this might be the case. And Erik ten Hag did mention it in his interview today. He was asked about injuries. He said, many of my colleagues have pointed this out, and I have too, but it continues. We continue to expand the schedule. It doesn't stop. The players can no longer cope with the overload, and I think that's what we're seeing in the team at the moment. So he's talking about the hectic schedule that Manchester United and clubs have in terms of, game after game after game, competition after competition, Premier League, Champions League, Carabao Cup, FA Cup, all of these thrown in on top of players. And I can completely understand where he's coming from. And Ten Hag is not the first manager that has talked about schedule overload. Jurgen Klopp has been doing it for 3 or 4 or 5 years. He tends to do it when Liverpool start to have a dip in form. But Ten Hag is not the first coach to bring this to everybody's attention. And he doesn't have to. We know that players are, massively overworked when it comes to games. And I said this a couple of months back. I think I said it as far back as 6 or 7 months ago, that I think if it continues to go the way it goes, I think you will see players going on strike. I really do, because players cannot continue to play the amount of games that their clubs, and it's not their clubs, that the governing bodies are asking them to play. The Premier League, the FA, UEFA, FIFA, all of these regulatory bodies and footballing entities are cashing in on the popularity of the sport. And because of that, players are being asked to play more and more and more games. We've seen the Europa League, obviously, and now we're seeing the Europa Conference League. We're seeing an expansion to the Champions League next year. We're seeing the Club World Cup being expanded. We're seeing the World Cup being expanded in the coming years as well. I guarantee you players are going to go on strike in the coming years, because you cannot continue to load up games on top of players like this. And we're seeing we're seeing the demise of players now with injuries and so on and so forth. It just can't continue to happen. It really can't. Now, when it comes to Manchester United, and I don't think, I don't think Manchester United have helped themselves in any way, shape, or form with the workload that we put on our players in pre-season. Now, I don't know who signed off this pre-season, whether it was in place for a number of years before, or whether it was something that was planned out by the management with Ten Hag and the board and the club as a whole. I don't know. But the amount of games that we played in different locations, the amount of traveling that the players had to go through on the back of a very, very strenuous season for Manchester United. We went basically to the end of every competition. Manchester United could have only played 2 more games last season. Possible. We got knocked out of 3 more games. We got knocked out of the Europa League. We could have played the 2 semi-final games, and then we could have played the final in that as well. So 3 more games were the maximum amount. So we were 3 short of the maximum amount of games that we could have possibly played last season, with a World Cup thrown into the middle of it. And then we have a short break because we go so long into competitions. We bring players back, and we have this extended pre-season tour where we travel half the world to play a variety of games. And I know a lot of the younger academy players played in some of them games, but it's the traveling that has done the damage here, I think. Why can't Manchester United just have a pre-season in Manchester? Let's say the seasons where we are playing World Cups, every second season, you just do your pre-season in Carrington. How much more work could you get done? you have your games at Old Trafford, and you might maybe travel to maybe Newcastle or Liverpool or wherever it may be, but you're staying close to home. You have your home games at Old Trafford for pre-season where, you've got family outings or you've got family tickets, cheap tickets for everybody to come along. And you get so much more work done rather than traveling the majority of the time and playing a few games in between. I just think it's the way to go. I really do. And I think again that we could go back as far as the ownership with this. And obviously it's a massive cash cow for the owners. But if you look at, say, the money that's generated from each game on a preseason tour, it's a couple of million maybe. Now, if you get, an extra round of the Champions League, there's your money made back. If you get to the semi-final of FA Cup, there's your money made back. So these games that we need to go and play abroad are not really big money generating games for Manchester United. I think it would make a lot more sense if we do our pre-season every second year in Manchester and in Carrington. I think it would give us such a massive advantage. Players would be coming in fresh. They would be, they would have proper rest because they don't have to go travel half the world. You would be able to give them 2 or 3 weeks off, and you would be able to really focus in and really, really get a good preseason in with, you might be able to do double sessions every second day or whatever it may be. I don't know what way the schedule works, but I think it would be a brilliant idea. The years that we've got international competitions going on, do your preseason in Carrington. And every second year, then you can have your trips to America. You can have your trips to, to Asia. You can have, we should be going to Africa as well, by the way, because I think it's a continent that we've neglected massively over the last 20 years, given the fan base that's there as well. So, but yeah, I don't think Manchester United have helped themselves. And, we've had a massive preseason, and I think we're seeing the downside of that massive preseason now with all of the injuries that we're after getting. Now, a lot of these injuries, you would say, I mean, Manchester United have had a director of like the head of medicine, if that's what it is, or physio, the head physio, whatever it may be. I'm not sure the actual title of their role. He's been a stand-in since January. We haven't had a proper head of medicine, if that's what we're going to be calling it, at Manchester United. Now, last week, we did hire the head of medicine from Arsenal, who has made the move over to Manchester United, which is a good appointment, you would have to say. Now, it's going to take time for him to implement what he wants and, how he wants players treated and the rest and so on and so forth. He's obviously going to be liaising with Erik ten Hag, and they're going to probably sit down and say, well, this is the workload. We want to tweak it here. We want to give a rest here. We want to, push him a little bit more there. So, again, it's just Manchester United and the board not giving Erik ten Hag the backing that's required. Now, I don't know, like I said, who plans pre-season, but whoever did, and I will give Erik ten Hag criticism on this if it was him that planned pre-season, because it's not after helping us. We see the first 2 games that we went into, first 2 or 3 games even, we looked leggy, we looked tired, we didn't look fit. We looked like a team that was traveling all around the world. And I was actually watching the Stretford Paddock, and they said, obviously they went on the preseason tour. I said they were wrecked from all of the traveling without having to play any of the games. Now, obviously they were probably on the lash as well. You would never know. But for a player to have to do all of that traveling across America to do preseason training and to play games, it must be absolutely exhausting. So, again, there's criticisms there from me, I have to say. Now, Erik ten Hag also said today, he said there was a World Cup in the middle of the season, a longer season, a shorter break. Each time the calendar gets longer, the load on the players is too great. And I would agree with him there. Absolutely, I would agree with him. I think the main workload is coming from the likes of UEFA, the likes of FIFA, the likes of the Premier League, the FA, that are extending these tournaments and maybe Pep Guardiola is onto something, you know, when he's tossing off the Carabao Cup, you know, and just saying, I don't care about the Carabao Cup. I want to keep my players fresh for the important competitions. Now, look, Manchester United as a club and as a team, and Eric Ten Hag as a manager and the squad, we probably can't afford not to take the Carabao Cup seriously, because it's a good opportunity for us to get silverware like we did last season. And I do think that there is a fine balance that you have to strike up there, because as a club and as a fan base, obviously we want to be in the Champions League, but what do you remember most? You remember winning trophies more than anything else. You remember your club playing in finals, challenging for competitions. You know, you don't remember, like, can someone tell me where Manchester United finished in 2014? You'd probably have to look it up. You know what I mean? And, you know, if it was in the top four, great. But, you know, say when we won the FA Cup under Louis van Gaal, that was something that we will remember because we picked up a trophy. So there's a fine balance that you get between, you know, taking competition seriously or trying to keep our players fresh. So, and look, I think Eric Ten Hag done a really good job last season in relation to finding that balance between resting players and really, really going for every competition. Because like I said, we could have only played 3 more games last season if we got to the final of the Carabao Cup. So we basically played every game we could possibly play, bar 3. And that's a huge achievement with a squad that was so thin, you know. And it looks like Eric Ten Hag is, you know, going to go all out for all of these competitions again. I mean, we've seen in the Carabao Cup midweek there against Crystal Palace that you know, obviously he brought in Pellistri, he brought in Hannibal, he brought in Garnacho. But these players, I mean, Garnacho especially is a first-team player regardless. Hannibal is breaking onto the scene, and so is Pellistri. And, you know, he played Casemiro. He played Varane. You know, he played Dalot. Obviously, he had to play Dalot. And, you know, but it'll be interesting to see what he does later on in the season when we do have a full squad back. Will he rotate? You know, will he bring in Scott McTominay for the, you know, the home game against Copenhagen? Or will he just go all out, full strength? It's going to be interesting to see. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks for Manchester United. Again, we're starting to build a nice bit of momentum. You know, obviously we're going into the game tomorrow now against Crystal Palace, which we will be doing a watch along for, by the way. So make sure you do join us for that. We'll be live from 2:30 tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. Obviously, we've built some momentum. We want to keep winning. So I'm sure Eric Ten Hag is probably going to try and go as strong as possible between now and the international break. We cannot afford any more injuries. We really can't. If Amrabat was to get injured, who do we play at left back? You're probably going to have to push Lindelof out there. Then Harry Maguire comes in at centre back with Varane. I mean, we're so paper thin at the back. It's frightening. It really is. And again, like I said, there is a trickle-down effect now because Regulion is injured. It means Sofyan Amrabat now is not going to be able to play in midfield, which means Casemiro is going to have to do a lot more work than, you know, he would have to do if Amrabat was playing beside him. It probably means Scott McTominay is going to play more, or it means Mason Mount is going to come back into the middle rather than playing on the right, which means Pellistri might get a game then on the right-hand side. You never know. So there is a trickle-down effect to these injuries because we've got so many of them. We need players to fill into different positions that maybe they might not have been if we had a full squad. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. Please hit the like and subscribe button. We're on the road to 4,000 subscribers. Our aim is 5,000 before Christmas. So please do hit the subscribe button. Hit the share button as well. Like I said, we will be back tomorrow for the watch along live at 2:30. Hope to see you there. Please join us then. Until then, take care, stay safe, and I'll chat to you soon.